They handcuffed her in front of screaming children, called her a trespasser, a criminal, a threat. But what those officers didn't know, what they couldn't have imagined, was that the black woman they were dragging away in chains was the same judge who would decide their fate in exactly 72 hours. This is the true story of how one wrongful arrest exposed a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of power. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story gets darker than you can imagine, and you won't want to miss a single twist. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this truth travels. Now let's go back to where it all started. Step out of the vehicle, now. Helena Briggs kept both hands on the steering wheel, visible, non-threatening, the way you had to when you were black and a cop was standing at your window looking for an excuse. "Officer, I have authorization to be here," she said, calm, even. 23 years on the bench had taught her that tone mattered more than words. "I'm picking up my niece. I've been doing this every Wednesday for 6 months." Officer Trudeau, nameplate catching the sun, hand resting on his holster, leaned down to her window. "Ma'am, we received a complaint about a suspicious vehicle loitering in the school parking lot." Suspicious. There it was. Helena glanced in her rearview mirror. Behind her, a white woman in a Range Rover was laughing on her phone engine, running no cop in sight. 2 cars back, a white man was vaping with his windows down, nobody approaching him either. "I have my visitor's permit," Helena said. "It's in my glove compartment. May I get it?" Slowly. She moved like she was defusing a bomb. Slow. Deliberate. Her fingers touched the yellow laminated pass, the one she'd picked up from the office that morning at 7:45 a.m., same as always. But as she pulled it out, a second cruiser rolled up, fast. Lights off, but the arrival felt aggressive. A younger Officer Kowalski, according to his badge, jumped out and positioned himself at her passenger window. "Keep your hands where I can see them," Kowalski shouted. Helena froze. "I'm getting my permit. Your partner asked for it." "Slowly," Trudeau repeated. Very slowly. She held up the pass. Her photo. Zoe's name. Principal Whitmore's signature. Valid through June. Trudeau barely looked at it. "Who authorized this?" "Principal Whitmore. The signature's right there." "We'll need to verify that. Step out of the vehicle." Helena's stomach dropped. "Officer, I've shown you my permit. I have authorization. What's the actual legal basis for this stop?" Trudeau's jaw tightened. "The legal basis is we received a complaint and you're not cooperating with our investigation." "I've answered every question. I've provided documentation. That's cooperation." "Ma'am, if you don't exit the vehicle, we'll add obstruction to the charges." "What charges? I haven't committed a crime." Around them, the pickup line had slowed. Parents were stopping, pulling out phones. Helena could see them angling cameras. Fingers tapping screens. She'd become the afternoon's entertainment. And then she saw him. Principal Richard Whitmore. Standing in the office doorway, arms crossed. Watching. 3 weeks ago, Helena had filed a formal complaint with the school board. Zoe had come home crying because her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had made her sit alone at lunch after she'd defended another black student who'd been accused of stealing. The accusation was false. The white student had later admitted she'd misplaced her own pencil case, but the black student had already been suspended. Helena had documented everything. Dates, times, witness statements from other children. She'd submitted it all to the board with a formal request for an investigation into discriminatory disciplinary practices. Whitmore had called her 2 days later. "Judge Briggs, I think you're overreacting. Kids have conflicts. It's not always about race. When black children are suspended at 3 times the rate of white children for identical behaviors. Principal Whitmore, it's always about race." He'd hung up on her, and now he was watching her get pulled out of her car by police. "Am I being detained?" Helena asked. She knew the magic words, the ones that mattered in court later. "Yes," Trudeau said. "Under what statute?" "Virginia, Code 18-2-19, trespass after having been forbidden to do so." "I haven't been forbidden. I've written authorization signed by the principal himself." "That's for us to determine, out of the car." Helena took a breath. She could fight this. She wanted to fight this sis, but she also knew how these situations ended. She'd presided over too many cases where resistance became the justification for violence. "I'm going to exit the vehicle," she said, raising her voice so the recording phones could hear.
"I want
it on record that I am complying under protest. I have violated no law. I have proper authorization, and I believe I am being targeted because of my race." "Here we go," Trudeau muttered, playing the race card. Officer, in the past 15 minutes, how many other parents have you stopped? Trudeau's face reddened. Get out of the car, last warning. Helena reached for her door handle, but as she moved, her phone sitting in the cup holder buzzed. A text from the school office. She glanced down for half a second. That was all they needed. She's reaching for something, Kowalski yelled. Hands up, show me your hands. It's my phone. Trudeau yanked her door open, charged, and grabbed her arm. His grip was iron fingers digging into her bicep. Helena's human instinct, was to pull away, to protect herself from pain. When she tried to steady herself against the doorframe, her hand brushed Trudeau's wrist. Barely a touch. Reflex? Nothing. But Trudeau jerked back like he'd been shot. Assault! She assaulted me! He grabbed his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 347. I need backup. Officer assaulted. Suspect is aggressive and non-compliant. Helena's heart stopped. I didn't... Kowalski was already behind her, wrenching her arms back with enough force to make her shoulders scream. Metal bit into her wrists. The handcuffs clicked shut too tight, cutting circulation. You just assaulted a police officer, Trudeau said, breathing hard, his face inches from hers. You're under arrest. This is insane. I barely touched you. You have the right to remain silent. I know my rights. She stopped, bit down on the words, because something wasn't right. This didn't feel like a mistake or an overreaction. This felt rehearsed, planned. The timing was too perfect, the escalation too fast, the charges too specific. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Check the body cam footage, Helena said. It'll show that I didn't assault anyone. You have the right to an attorney. I want every officer's body cam footage preserved. I want the dispatch logs. I want the name of whoever called in the complaint. Trudeau smiled, actually smiled. You're going to need a good lawyer, lady. Aunt Helena, the scream cut through everything. Helena's head snapped up. Zoe was running across the parking lot, purple backpack bouncing braids, flying tears streaming down her face. Behind her, Ms. Rodriguez, one of the few teachers Helena trusted, was chasing after her, calling her name. Zoe, stop, Helena shouted. Stay back! But Zoe kept coming, her 9-year-old legs pumping, her face twisted in terror. Let her go! Let her go! Zoe was sobbing, reaching for her aunt. Don't you touch her! Helena pulled against the handcuffs. The metal cut deeper into her wrists. Zoe, baby, listen to me. Ms. Rodriguez caught up and wrapped her arms around Zoe, physically holding her back. Zoe, honey, you can't... They're hurting her, Zoe screamed. Make them stop! Trudeau pushed Helena toward the cruiser, one hand on her head, shoving her down into the back seat. The door slammed shut. Through the window, Helena watched Zoe collapse in Ms. Rodriguez's arms. The teacher was crying too now, whispering something, trying to comfort a child who'd just watched her aunt get arrested like a criminal. Parents stood frozen phones up, recording everything. Some looked shocked. Others looked satisfied. One woman, Jennifer Morrison Helena, remembered her from a PTA meeting, was actually smiling. And in the office doorway, Whitmore still hadn't moved, hadn't tried to intervene, hadn't come out to explain that there was a mistake, that Judge Briggs had every right to be there. He just watched. Helena memorized his expression. The slight upturn of his mouth. The relaxed shoulders, the way he checked his watch. He knew this was coming. The cruiser pulled away. Helena twisted in her seat to see Zoe one last time. Ms. Rodriguez was walking her back toward the school, but Zoe was looking back, reaching toward the disappearing car, her mouth forming words Helena couldn't hear but knew by heart. Come back. Please come back. You people, Trudeau said from the front seat, eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror, always think the rules don't apply to you. There it was, the truth hiding under all the procedural language. You people? Helena repeated softly. Which people would that be, officer? You know exactly what I mean. Say it clearly, for the body cam. Trudeau's eyes narrowed. People who come into neighborhoods that aren't theirs, acting like they own the place, making everything about race when it's about respect for authority. I showed respect. I showed documentation. I complied with every instruction. You assaulted me. Your body cam will prove that's a lie. Kowalski laughed from the passenger seat. Good luck with that. You think anyone's going to believe you over 2 police officers? Helena said nothing. Let them talk. Let them incriminate themselves. Every word was being recorded. Bet you've got a lawyer on speed dial, Kowalski continued. Bet you're already planning the lawsuit, the press conferences, making yourself out to be a victim. I don't need to make myself anything, Helena said. You've done that for me. The station appeared ahead, red brick chain link fence, the municipal flag snapping in the wind. Trudeau pulled around to the side entrance away from public view. They walked her through booking like she was any other perp. Fingerprints, the ink cold and sticky. Mugshot front and profile, the flash too bright. Personal property inventory. The processing officer, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, pulled items from Helena's pockets. Wallet, keys, chapstick, a small gold pin from her lapel. "What's this?" the officer asked, squinting at it. "A pin." "Yeah, but from what 9th District Circuit Court." The officer turned it over, shrugged, dropped it into a plastic bag with the rest. "You a lawyer or something?" "Something like that." They put her in a holding cell. Concrete walls, metal bench, the smell of industrial cleaner and old fear. Helena sat down back straight and started counting. This was minute one of her wrongful detention. She'd count every single one. The cell block was busy. Across from her, a woman in a stained sweatshirt rocked back and forth, muttering to herself. Down the hall, someone was yelling about needing medication, a toilet flushed. Heavy doors clanged shut. Helena closed her eyes and did what she'd taught herself to do in stressful moments, organize information. Fact, she'd been arrested at 3:47 p.m. Fact, her visitor's permit was valid. Fact, she'd been issued that permit at 7:45 a.m. Fact, Trudeau claimed they'd received a complaint about suspicious activity. Question, what time was that complaint logged? Because if it was logged before 7:45 a.m., before she even had the permit, that would prove premeditation. That would prove someone set this up. An hour passed, then 90 minutes. Helena tracked time by the shift changes. She could hear the changing voices, the rhythm of the station settling into evening routines. Then she heard her name. Briggs. Yeah, the one from Ridgemont. Trudeau said she went crazy, tried to fight him. I saw the video. Parents were filming. Didn't look like she fought anybody. Doesn't matter what it looked like. She touched him. That's assault. Come on, man. My grandmother hits harder than that. You really think assault is assault? Letter of the law. She's going down for it. If you say so, just seems like overkill for a lady picking up her kid. Her niece. And she's not just some lady. Word is she's been causing problems at that school. Filing complaints, making accusations. Maybe this'll teach her to mind her business. Footsteps faded away. Helena opened her eyes. There it was. Confirmation. This wasn't about trespassing or assault. This was about shutting her up. At 6:15 p.m., Helena had counted 148 minutes Detective Ana Reyes appeared outside her cell. Internal Affairs. Helena recognized her immediately. They'd crossed paths a year ago. The Martinez case. A drug dealer who claimed evidence had been planted. Helena had reviewed the chain of custody documents and found irregularities. She'd thrown out the charges. The department had been furious. Reyes looked uncomfortable now, her ID badge swinging from her neck as she unlocked the cell door. Ms. Briggs, I need to ask you some questions about the incident at Ridgemont Elementary. Am I free to leave? No. You're being charged with criminal trespass and assault on a law enforcement officer. Then I'll wait for my attorney. Ms. Briggs, it would be better if... Judge Briggs, Helena said quietly. She stood up, met Reyes's eyes. Judge Helena Briggs, 9th District Circuit Court, 23 years on the bench. And since we both know you've already run my name through the system, Detective Reyes, I'm very curious about why I'm still in this cell. The color drained from Reyes's face. You're Judge Briggs? You testified in my courtroom, the Martinez case. I was the judge who dismissed charges against your department's star witness after finding multiple procedural violations. So yes, Detective, I'm that Judge Briggs, and I'm the woman your officers just arrested for the crime of picking up my niece from school. Reyes took a step back, her hand moving instinctively toward her radio. I have to call Pimi. Before you do that, Helena said, I strongly suggest you secure certain evidence, body camera footage from Officers Trudeau and Kowalski, dispatch logs showing the exact time the complaint was called in, any communication, emails, texts, phone calls between Principal Richard Whitmore and your department over the past 30 days, video surveillance from the school parking lot, and the visitor's permit application I submitted this morning at 7:45 a.m. Your Honor, Because this wasn't a random stop, Detective. This was coordinated, and if any of that evidence mysteriously disappears between now and my arraignment, I will personally ensure the FBI investigates every person in this building. Reyes practically ran from the holding area. Helena sat back down and waited. 23 minutes later, the entire tone of the station shifted. She could hear it. Voices getting quieter. Urgent footsteps, doors opening and closing. Someone saying, "Oh shit," repeatedly. At 6:52 p.m., Sergeant William Harris appeared at her cell, gray-haired, sweating despite the air conditioning. He unlocked the door with shaking hands. "Judge Briggs, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. We're releasing you immediately. No charges filed. We sincerely apologize for what?" Helena said. Harris blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said no. I don't accept your apology, and I don't accept dismissal of charges." "Your Honor, we're trying to make this right." "You arrested me. You charged me with criminal trespass and assault. I want my day in court." "Judge Briggs, with all due respect, we can just drop." "I don't want them dropped. I want them adjudicated in open court, with full due process, with every procedural protection I've spent 23 years upholding. I want this on the public record, all of it." Harris looked like he might pass out. "I'll need to speak with the chief." "You do that. And while you're at it, make sure someone preserves all the evidence I mentioned to Detective Reyes. Every recording, every log, every email, every scrap of paper. Because if anything, and I mean anything, goes missing, I will make sure federal prosecutors know about it. Do we understand each other, Sergeant?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Good. Now I'll need my phone call, and my personal property returned, and my vehicle returned to my home address undamaged, and a written incident report with badge numbers, witness names, and case numbers. I'll wait." They processed her release like she was radioactive. Her property bag came back with everything accounted for. She checked twice. Her phone had 37 missed calls, messages from her sister, from colleagues, from reporters who'd somehow already gotten the story. But the first call she made was to Zoe. Her sister answered on the first ring. "Helena, oh my God, are you okay? Zoe told me what happened. I'm driving back from Richmond right now." "I'm fine. Put Zoe on." "Aunt Helena." Zoe's voice was small, fragile. "Are you in jail?" "No, baby, I'm out. I'm coming home. They hurt you. I saw them hurt you." Helena closed her eyes. "I'm okay. I promise. Listen to me, Zoe. What happened today wasn't right, but we're going to fix it. Do you understand? How? By telling the truth. By standing up. By not letting them scare us into silence." "I was scared." "I know, but you were also brave. You ran to help me. That took courage." "Ms. Rodriguez said I shouldn't have run. She said it could have made it worse." "Ms. Rodriguez was trying to protect you. But Zoe, I need you to remember something. When you see something wrong, you speak up. You don't stay quiet just because it's easier. You hear me?" "I hear you." "I'll be home in an hour. We'll talk more then. I love you." "I love you too." Helena ended the call and stood in the station parking lot for a moment. The evening sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Beautiful. Ordinary. Like the world hadn't just shifted under her feet. Her car was where they'd left it, parked at the far end of the lot, away from security cameras. Convenient. She got in, started the engine, and pulled up her phone's recording app. She'd started recording the moment Trudeau approached her window. The entire arrest was documented, audio at least, but she needed video, the parents' footage, the school's security cameras, the body cams. She needed everything. As Helena drove home, she passed Ridgemont Elementary. The parking lot was empty now, afternoon sun gleaming off the asphalt. She slowed down, looking at the spot where she'd been arrested. And that's when she saw it. A security camera, mounted on the light pole, pointed directly at where her car had been parked. That camera had recorded everything. Helena made a mental note. She'd need to file a preservation order first thing tomorrow, because whoever planned this might not know about that camera, and by the time they realized it existed, it would be too late. She smiled. The real game was just beginning. And this time, Helena wasn't playing defense. She was the judge, the jury, and the executioner. They'd arrested the wrong woman. Helena's hands were steady on the wheel, but her mind was racing at highway speed. She pulled into her driveway at 7:43 p.m., exactly 4 hours after they'd handcuffed her in front of children. 4 hours that felt like 4 years. Her sister's car was already there, living room lights blazing. Before Helena could even turn off the engine, the front door flew open, and Zoe came running down the steps. "Aunt Helena!" Helena caught her, wrapped her arms around the small, trembling body, felt Zoe's tears soaking into her shirt. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." "I thought they were going to keep you forever." "Nobody's keeping me anywhere, I promise." Her sister Diane appeared in the doorway, phone pressed to her ear. She was talking fast, her free hand gesturing wildly. "Don't care what the optics are, Marcus. My sister was arrested for picking up her niece. Yes, I want you to file something. Tomorrow morning, no tonight if possible." Helena walked Zoe inside, her niece still clinging to her waist. Diane ended the call and immediately pulled Helena into a fierce hug. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you? I swear to God, Helena, I will burn that station down. I'm fine, angry but fine. Marcus is drafting a civil rights complaint. He says you've got a slam-dunk case for false arrest, malicious prosecution violation of Fourth Amendment. I know what I have, Helena said quietly. But we need to be smart about this. Strategic. Diane pulled back, searching her sister's face. What do you mean? This wasn't random. Someone orchestrated this, and I need to prove it before they have time to cover their tracks. Helena's phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously like a swarm of angry bees. She pulled it out. Text messages flooding in. Emails, voicemails, notifications from social media apps she barely used. What the hell? You haven't seen it yet. Diane grabbed her own phone, pulled up Twitter, and handed it to Helena. The video was everywhere, posted by at least a dozen different parents. Hashtags already trending. Hashtag justice for Helena. Hashtag Ridgemont racism. Hashtag Black Women Matter. The most viral version had been posted by someone named @TruthSeeker 2024. Helena watched herself on the screen, watched Trudeau grab her arm, watched herself pull back, watched him shout, "Assault," like he'd been shot. The caption read, Judge Helena Briggs arrested at her niece's school for trespassing despite having valid authorization. Sound familiar? This is what happens when black women stand up to racist school administrators. RT to make this go viral. The video had 2.3 million views. And climbing. Oh God, Helena whispered. It gets better, Diane said grimly. She swiped to another video. This one was a split screen. Left side, Helena's arrest. Right side, a white man in a truck, clearly intoxicated, being gently walked to a police car by 2 officers. No handcuffs. No shouting. Just, come on, buddy, let's get you home safe. The caption, spot the difference. Helena handed the phone back. This is going to explode. It already has. Channel 7 called 3 times. So did the Washington Post. CNN wants you on Anderson Cooper tomorrow night. No interviews, not yet. Helena? I mean it. We say nothing until I know exactly what we're dealing with. Her phone rang. Helena glanced at the screen. Chief Deputy Melissa Ortega, one of the few people in law enforcement Helena actually trusted. Melissa? Helena, what the hell happened? Ortega's voice was tight with controlled fury. I just saw the video. The whole department's seen it. Tell me this isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. Jesus, who were the officers? Trudeau and Kowalski, Ridgemont District. Silence. Then Trudeau, Mark Trudeau. You know him. He's got 3 excessive force complaints in his file, all dismissed, all involving black suspects. Helena, this guy's been on IA's radar for 2 years. Helena's grip tightened on the phone. Why is he still on the street? Union, politics, the usual bullshit. But listen, this is different. You're not just anyone. You're a sitting judge. They arrested a judge. The brass is losing their minds right now. Good. They should be. Chief Dalton wants to meet with you. Personally. Apologize. Offer whatever you need to make this go away quietly. I don't want it to go away quietly. Ortega sighed. I figured you'd say that. What do you need? Everything. Body camera footage. Dispatch logs. Any communication between the police department and Ridgemont Elementary in the past 60 days. Personnel files on Trudeau and Kowalski. And I need it before anyone has a chance to sanitize it. That's a tall order? Your internal affairs. It's literally your job. Fair point. I'll see what I can do, but Helena, be careful. If this really was coordinated, if Whitmore and the cops were working together, you're not just taking on bad officers. You're taking on a system. I've been part of that system for 23 years. I know exactly what I'm up against. After they hung up, Helena found Zoe sitting on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, still crying quietly. Helena sat down beside her and pulled her close. Talk to me, baby. What are you feeling? Scared, Zoe whispered. And mad. Why did they hurt you? Because they thought they could. Because they thought I wouldn't fight back. Are you going to fight back? Helena looked at her niece, this smart, sensitive 9-year-old who'd just learned a brutal lesson about how the world worked. Yes, I am. How? By doing what I do best. By using the law. By making sure everyone sees what really happened. What if they don't care? The question hit Helena like a physical blow, because Zoe was right to ask it. How many videos had gone viral? How many black people had been killed, brutalized, humiliated on camera while the world watched and did nothing? Some people won't care, Helena said honestly, but some people will, and those people, the ones who believe in justice and fairness and the truth, They're the ones who'll help us change things. Diane brought them dinner. Neither of them ate. Helena tried to focus on being present for Zoe, but her mind kept circling back to the evidence. The timeline. The conspiracy she could feel but couldn't yet prove. At 9:15 p.m., her phone rang again. Unknown number. Helena almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Judge Briggs, a woman's voice, young, nervous. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a parent at Ridgemont. I was there today. I filmed what happened to you. Thank you for documenting it. That's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I heard something after they took you away. I was in the office asking about what happened, and I heard Principal Whitmore on the phone. He said... Sarah paused, her breath shaky. He said it went exactly as planned. She's in custody. The problem's solved. Helena sat up straighter. You heard him say those exact words. Yes, and he was laughing. Judge Briggs, he was laughing about your arrest. Who was he talking to? I don't know, but he mentioned someone named Burke. He said Burke will be pleased. This sends the right message. Burke. Helena knew that name. Warren Burke, school board member, former prosecutor. The man who'd tried 3 times to get Helena removed from the bench because she was too soft on crime, which really meant she actually followed the Constitution instead of rubber stamping every prosecution. Ms. Chen, would you be willing to testify to what you heard? Long pause. I have 2 kids at that school. If I testify against the principal, I understand, but think about what you're teaching your children. Think about what message we send if we stay silent. I need to think about it. I'm sorry, I needed you to know what I heard. I appreciate that. If you change your mind, please call me back. After Sarah hung up, Helena immediately called Marcus Lewin, her sister's lawyer, and one of the best civil rights attorneys in the state. Helena, I've been waiting for your call. I assume you've seen the videos. I've seen them, and I just got a call from a witness who overheard Whitmore saying the arrest went exactly as planned. Marcus whistled low. That's conspiracy, premeditation. This isn't just a bad arrest anymore. This is criminal. I know, which is why I need you to file a preservation order tonight, right now, before anything disappears. I'm already drafting it, but Helena, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? Once we file, there's no going back. This becomes a federal case. You'll be under a microscope. Every decision you've ever made on the bench will be scrutinized. They'll try to discredit you, destroy your reputation. Let them try. I'm serious. This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly, Marcus. They arrested me in front of children. They traumatized my niece. They violated every civil right I have. So yes, I'm sure. File everything. Tonight. At 10:47 p.m., Helena's phone lit up with a news alert. Ridgemont Police Chief issues statement on arrest of Circuit Court Judge. She clicked the link. Chief Robert Dalton's statement was a masterclass in non-apology. We take all complaints seriously and are conducting a thorough internal review of today's incident. Judge Briggs is a valued member of our legal community, and we regret any misunderstanding that may have occurred. The officers involved were following proper procedure in response to a trespassing complaint. We look forward to resolving this matter quickly and professionally. Helena read it 3 times. Each word was carefully chosen. Incident instead of arrest. Misunderstanding instead of violation. Following proper procedure instead of we screwed up. They were already building their defense. Helena opened her laptop and started typing. She'd spent 23 years writing judicial opinions, crafting arguments that could withstand appellate scrutiny. Now she'd use those same skills to dismantle the lies. She pulled up the visitor's permit application form she'd submitted that morning. Timestamp 7:45 a.m. She'd filed it electronically, which meant there was a digital record. Immutable. Undeniable. Then she pulled up her text messages with Diane from that morning. Got my permit. Picking up Zoe at 3. Want me to grab dinner on the way home. Timestamp 7:52 a.m. Next, she accessed her car's GPS history. Modern cars tracked everything. Her Honda had logged her arrival at Ridgemont Elementary at 3:41 p.m., engine off at 3:43 p.m., everything perfectly legal, perfectly routine. Now she needed the 911 call logs. That would prove when the complaint was actually made. Her phone rang. Ortega. I got the dispatch logs, Ortega said without preamble. Helena, you need to hear this. I'm listening. The 911 call came in at 2:47 p.m. Helena's blood went cold. What? 2:47. Almost an hour before you arrived at the school, someone called in a complaint about a suspicious black woman in a silver Honda before you were even there. That's impossible. It gets worse. The caller identified himself as Carl Mason, concerned parent, but when we pulled Mason's information, he doesn't have any kids at Ridgemont, and his phone records show he didn't make any calls that afternoon. The call came from a burner phone. Helena closed her eyes. Someone set this up. They planned it in advance. That's what it looks like, and there's more. I pulled Trudeau's patrol logs. He was assigned to Ridgemont at 2:30 p.m., specifically requested that assignment, claimed he was doing a routine safety check of the school, but Helena, he's never done a safety check at that school before, not once in his 3 years on the force. He was waiting for me. Yeah, and here's the thing that really bothers me, the body cam footage. I reviewed it twice. Trudeau turned his camera on at 3:44 p.m., but department policy requires cameras to be activated the moment an officer engages with a civilian, which means he was already at your car, already approaching before he hit record. What happened in those missing minutes? No idea, but I'd bet anything he was coordinating with someone, making sure the timing was right. Helena's mind was connecting dots at lightning speed. Ortega, I need you to do something else. Check phone records, Trudeau's cell, Whitmore's cell, and Warren Burke's cell. Cross-reference them for the past month. Look for any communication between them. That requires a warrant. Then get one. Use my arrest as probable cause. This is a conspiracy to violate civil rights. Federal crime. You have jurisdiction. You know this is going to make me very unpopular in the department. You know what makes me very unpopular, standing up for what's right. But we do it anyway, because that's the job. Ortega laughed without humor. You always were a pain in the ass, Helena. Fine, I'll start the paperwork. But you owe me a very expensive dinner when this is over. Helena hung up and returned to her laptop. She opened a new document and started outlining everything. Every detail, every inconsistency, every piece of evidence that pointed to premeditation. At 11:30 p.m., Diane appeared in the doorway. You should sleep. I can't, not yet. Helena, you were arrested today, traumatized. You need rest. What I need is justice. Sleep can wait. Diane sat down across from her. Mom called. She's flying in tomorrow from Atlanta. She wants to kill everyone involved, starting with Trudeau and ending with Whitmore. Helena smiled despite everything. Their mother, Dr. Patricia Briggs, retired surgeon terror of hospital administrators everywhere, was not someone you wanted as an enemy. Tell her to save her rage. We're going to need it when this goes to trial. You really think it'll go that far? I know it will, because I'm not accepting a settlement. I'm not signing an NDA. I'm going to drag every single person involved into open court and make them answer for what they did. Diane was quiet for a moment. You know what I realized today watching that video, seeing you handcuffed, all those years you spent on the bench, all those cases where you tried to be fair to give people a chance to believe in the system, and the system treated you like a criminal anyway. That's exactly why I have to fight this, because if they can do this to me, a judge, someone with power and resources and connections, imagine what they do to people who don't have any of that. You're going to make enemies, powerful ones. I already have enemies. Today just made them visible. At midnight, Helena's email dinged. Marcus had filed the preservation order. Every piece of evidence related to her arrest was now legally protected. If anyone tried to delete, modify, or destroy anything, they'd face criminal charges. But at 12:17 a.m., another email arrived. No subject line. No sender name. Just an attachment. Helena opened it. It was a photo, grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. It showed Helena and Zoe walking out of Ridgemont Elementary 3 weeks ago, the day after she'd filed her complaint with the school board. Someone had been watching them, following them, documenting their routine. The message below the photo was 2 sentences. You should have kept your mouth shut. Some fights aren't worth winning. Helena's hands started shaking, not from fear, from rage. She forwarded the email to Ortega with a single line, add witness intimidation to the charges. Then she walked to Zoe's room. Her niece was asleep, finally curled up under her purple comforter. Helena stood in the doorway watching her breathe this innocent child who'd been dragged into a war she didn't ask for. I won't let them win, Helena whispered. I promise you, baby, I won't let them win. She went back to her laptop, opened social media. The hashtags were still trending. Millions of people had seen the videos now. Politicians were commenting. Activists were organizing. The ACLU had issued a statement condemning her arrest. But there were other comments too. Ugly ones. Racist ones. People saying she deserved it. People claiming she must have done something wrong. People who would never ever believe that the system could be rigged against someone like her. Helena read every comment, the good and the bad, because she needed to understand what she was up against. She needed to see the full scope of the battlefield. At 1:30 a.m., her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Judge Briggs, this is Sarah Chen. I'll testify. My kids need to see me stand up. Tell me what you need." Helena felt something crack open in her chest. Hope. Fragile but real. She replied, "Thank you. I'll have my attorney contact you tomorrow. What you're doing takes real courage." Sarah's response came immediately. "What you're doing takes courage, too. You could have accepted their apology and walked away. But you're fighting. For all of us." Helena stared at that message for a long time. Because Sarah was right. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about every parent who'd been profiled, every student who'd been suspended unfairly, every black person who'd been told to just accept injustice and move on. At 2:15 a.m., Helena finally closed her laptop. She was exhausted. Physically, emotionally, but also strangely energized. Because for the first time in hours, she had a plan. Tomorrow she'd call every judge in the circuit, every attorney she trusted, every civil rights organization that might help. She'd build an army of truth-tellers and justice seekers. She'd gather evidence so overwhelming that even the most skeptical observer would have to admit what really happened. And then she'd go to court. Her court. The same courtroom where she'd presided for over 2 decades. And she'd watch those officers squirm as every lie they told collapsed under the weight of evidence. But tonight she'd sleep, because warriors needed rest. And tomorrow the real battle began. Helena lay down in bed, closed her eyes, and for just a moment let herself feel everything. The fear, the anger, the violation, the grief. Then she breathed it all out, pushed it down into a place where she could access it later, use it as fuel, but not let it consume her, because she was Judge Helena Briggs, and she'd spent 23 years learning how to control her emotions in service of justice. They'd picked the wrong woman to arrest, and they were about to find out exactly how wrong. At 3:47 a.m., exactly 12 hours after her arrest, Helena's phone buzzed one final time. An email from Ortega with 3 attachments. Body camera footage, unedited, from both officers. Helena opened the first file, watched Trudeau approach her car, watched herself comply with every instruction, watched him grab her arm, watched her reflexive pullback that he'd called assault. Then she opened the second file, Kowalski's camera, different angle, clearer view, and there in the corner of the frame, barely visible, Whitmore, standing in the office window, phone to his ear, smiling. Helena saved both files to 3 different cloud services, emailed them to Marcus, texted them to Diane. She wasn't taking any chances. The evidence was secure. The truth was documented. The conspiracy was exposed. Now came the reckoning. Helena set her alarm for 6:00 a.m., 4 hours of sleep. It would have to be enough. Because today, really, she had an arraignment to prepare for, a media strategy to coordinate, a case to build, that would shake the foundations of every corrupt system that thought it could silence her. They'd arrested a judge, and judges knew how to fight back. The alarm screamed at 6:00 a.m. Helena was already awake. She'd been staring at the ceiling for the past 20 minutes, running through scenarios, anticipating arguments, preparing for war. Diane was in the kitchen when Helena came down, some coffee already brewing. "Mom's flight lands at 9. She wants to come to the arraignment." "Tell her no. I need her with Zoe. This is going to be a circus." "Helena, you can't go through this alone. I'm not alone. Marcus will be there. Ortega's meeting me at the courthouse. And half the media in the state will be watching." Helena poured coffee, her hands steady now. Besides, someone needs to keep Zoe away from the news coverage. She doesn't need to see this. Diane nodded, understanding. "What time's your arraignment?" 10 o'clock, but I'm meeting Marcus at 8 to review evidence. The body cam footage. Among other things. Helena pulled out her phone, scrolled through the overnight emails. Dozens more had arrived while she slept. Reporters requesting interviews. Activists offering support. Anonymous messages ranging from encouragement to death threats. One email stood out. Subject line, "You need to see this." Sender anonymous. Helena opened it. Inside was a link to a private Facebook group called Ridgemont Parents for Traditional Values. She clicked through. The group had 347 members, and the posts made her blood boil. That woman has been causing trouble since day one, always complaining about racism where there isn't any, always playing the victim. "My son is in Mrs. Patterson's class. She's an excellent teacher. Judge Briggs is just trying to get attention. I heard she tried to fight the police officers. What did she expect would happen?" But the most recent post from someone named Jennifer Morrison, the woman who'd been smiling during Helena's arrest, stopped her cold. "Problem solved. Burke was right. Sometimes you have to send a message. These people need to learn their place. Helena screenshot everything, forwarded it to Marcus with a single word, discovery. At 7:45 a.m., Helena pulled into the courthouse parking garage. She'd driven past 17 news vans, 3 live broadcast setups, and at least 50 protesters holding signs. Half supported her, half called her a troublemaker who deserved what she got. Marcus was waiting by the elevator briefcase in one hand, phone in the other. "Have you seen the news?" "I've been avoiding it." "Don't. You need to know what we're dealing with." He pulled up his phone, showed her CNN's headline, "Federal investigation launched into judge's arrest as video goes viral." Federal investigation already. Attorney General's office opened it at 6 this morning. Civil Rights Division. They're treating this as a potential pattern and practice case. Helena, this isn't just about you anymore. They're looking at the entire Ridgemont Police Department. Helena felt something shift in her chest. Relief mixed with dread. Because federal investigations meant scrutiny of everyone, including her. "What do I need to know before we go in there?" Marcus guided her toward a conference room. Inside, he spread out documents like a general planning a siege. Body cam footage, dispatch logs, phone records, email chains, the threatening photo someone had sent Helena at midnight. "Here's what we've got," Marcus said. "The 911 call was made almost an hour before you arrived. The caller used a burner phone registered to a fake name. Trudeau requested assignment to that school specifically that day, first time ever. Whitmore's phone records show 3 calls to Warren Burke in the 2 hours before your arrest. And Burke's phone pinged off a cell tower near the police station at 2:30 p.m. Burke was at the station, or very close to it. Helena, this goes deeper than we thought. I think Burke coordinated the whole thing. He called Whitmore, who called the police, who sent Trudeau. It's a conspiracy chain from the school board to the principal to law enforcement." Helena absorbed this. "Can we prove it?" "Not yet, but Ortega got a warrant approved 20 minutes ago. They're pulling full phone records for all 3 men. Text messages, emails, everything. If there's evidence of coordination, we'll find it." "What about the prosecutor? Who am I facing?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Victoria Chen, Deputy Commonwealth Attorney, hardliner. She's already filed a motion to proceed with the charges. She wants to prosecute a sitting judge for picking up her niece. She wants to make an example of you, show that nobody's above the law." Marcus paused. "Helena, there's something else. The judge assigned to your arraignment, it's supposed to be random assignment, but somehow it ended up with Judge Whitaker." Helena's stomach dropped. "Thomas Whitaker, the man who lost to me in the last judicial election. The same. He's hated you for 4 years. And now he gets to decide whether you get bail, whether the charges stand, whether he needs to recuse himself immediately. I filed the motion an hour ago, but Helena, if he refuses, then we go over his head. Appellate court, emergency writ. I'm not letting him weaponize the bench against me." They spent the next hour reviewing strategy. Marcus would handle the legal arguments. Helena would remain calm, professional, unshakable. They'd use the body cam footage to prove the assault charge was fabricated. They'd use the dispatch logs to prove premeditation. They'd use the phone records to prove conspiracy. At 9:30 a.m., they headed to courtroom 4B. The hallway was packed. Reporters, camera crews, protesters who'd somehow gotten inside. Helena recognized faces, colleagues from the Bar Association, lawyers she'd worked with, judges she'd served alongside. And standing near the courtroom entrance, arms crossed, looking smug, Warren Burke. School board member. Former prosecutor. The man who'd orchestrated her arrest. Their eyes met. Burke smiled. Actually smiled. Helena walked straight toward him. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Helena, don't..." "Mr. Burke?" Helena said, her voice carrying. "I'm surprised to see you here. Most conspirators avoid showing their faces at the scene of the crime." Burke's smile widened. "Judge Briggs, I heard about your unfortunate incident. Such a shame when people can't follow simple rules. Simple rules like the Fourth Amendment due process, equal protection under the law. I'm talking about school visitor policies, but if you want to make this about race, be my guest. It's your credibility on the line." Helena stepped closer. "My credibility is backed by 23 years on the bench. What's backing yours? 3 phone calls to Principal Whitmore and a burner phone 911 call." Burke's smile faltered, just for a second, but Helena saw it, fear flickering behind his eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You will. When the FBI comes knocking, when they pull your phone records, when they subpoena your emails, you thought you were untouchable. You were wrong." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. See you in court, Mr. Burke. Helena walked past him into the courtroom. The gallery was standing room only, every seat filled, people lining the walls, and sitting in the front row, Ortega in uniform, flanked by 2 other internal affairs detectives. Marcus leaned over. Ortega brought backup. That's a good sign. The bailiff called out, "All rise, the Honorable Thomas Whitaker presiding." Whitaker entered. 60-something, gray hair, permanent scowl. He took his seat without looking at Helena. "Be seated. Commonwealth of Virginia versus Helena Briggs. Charges of criminal trespass and assault on a law enforcement officer." Whitaker's voice was flat, mechanical. "How does the defendant plead?" Marcus stood. "Your Honor, before we enter a plea defense, moves for immediate recusal. You have a documented history of a motion denied." "Your Honor, with respect, before that you ran against Judge Briggs in where I said motion denied. Now how does the defendant plead?" Helena stood. "Your Honor, I must object to this proceeding. You have a clear conflict of interest. Judge Briggs, you are the defendant in this courtroom. You will address me with the respect this bench deserves, or I will hold you in contempt. Do you understand?" The room went silent. Even the reporters stopped typing. Helena's voice was ice. "I understand that you're abusing your authority. I understand that this entire proceeding's tainted by your bias. And I understand that every word you speak is being recorded for the appellate court to review." Whitaker's face reddened. "Bail is set at $50,000. Your Honor." Marcus was on his feet. "My client is a sitting judge with 0 flight risk. She has deep community ties." "Bail is set. Next case?" "Your Honor, we haven't entered a plea. We haven't had preliminary arguments. You can't just..." "I can do whatever I deem appropriate in my courtroom." Helena locked eyes with Whitaker. "No, you can't, because this isn't your courtroom. It's the people's courtroom, and you're violating every principle it stands for." "That's it. Defendant is held in contempt. Bailiff, take her into custody." The bailiff hesitated. Looked at Helena. Looked at Ortega. Looked back at Whitaker. "Your Honor," the bailiff said slowly, "with respect, I don't think I gave you an order." Ortega stood. "Judge Whitaker, I'm Detective Ana Reyes, Internal Affairs. Before you proceed any further, you need to see this." She held up a tablet. "This is body cam footage from yesterday's incident. It directly contradicts the charges filed against Judge Briggs." "That's not relevant to bail. It's relevant to everything. Your Honor, this footage shows Judge Briggs complying with every officer instruction. It shows Officer Trudeau grabbing her first. It shows her reflexive pullback being falsely characterized as assault. And it shows Principal Whitmore watching from the office window, phone to his ear, smiling." "Objection!" Victoria Chen, the prosecutor, jumped up. "That footage hasn't been authenticated." "It came from your department's own body cameras," Ortega shot back. 2 angles, time-stamped, unedited, and it proves that Officer Trudeau filed a false report. The courtroom erupted, reporters shouting questions, spectators gasping, Whitaker banging his gavel. "Order, I will have order." Marcus grabbed the opening. "Your Honor, in light of this evidence, we move to dismiss all charges with prejudice. The Commonwealth has no case. This arrest was unlawful from the start." Chen stood again. "The Commonwealth objects. We have 2 sworn officers who witnessed..." "2 officers who lied," Helena said. Her voice cut through the chaos. Everyone turned. "2 officers who conspired with a school principal to violate my civil rights. 2 officers who filed false reports. 2 officers who are about to face federal charges." "Judge Briggs, you are out of line," Whitaker started. "No, you're out of line. This entire proceeding is a farce. You should have recused yourself. The prosecutor should have reviewed the evidence before filing charges. And those officers should be in handcuffs, not me." Whitaker stood. "That's enough, bailiff." "Your Honor, if I may." A new voice from the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned. A man in a dark suit walked down the aisle, federal ID hanging from his neck. "Special Agent Michael Torres, FBI. I'm here to serve notice that this case has been referred to the Department of Justice for investigation of civil rights violations under Title 18 U.S.C. Section 242. All evidence must be preserved. All parties are subject to federal subpoena, and this arraignment needs to be postponed pending our investigation." Whitaker looked like he might have a stroke. "You can't just walk into my courtroom." "I can, and I did. Judge Whitaker, I strongly suggest you recuse yourself before this becomes part of our investigation, too." The threat was clear. Whitaker's hands were shaking. He looked at Chen, at Burke still sitting in the gallery, at Helena, who met his gaze without flinching. "This court stands in recess." Whitaker finally said. 30 minutes. He fled the bench. The courtroom exploded. Reporters rushed the aisles, cameras flashing, questions shouting. Marcus pulled Helena aside. That was incredibly risky. It worked. Helena, you just went toe-to-toe with a judge in his own courtroom. He's not a judge. He's a petty tyrant who forgot what justice means. Ortega appeared beside them. Torres wants to talk to you, conference room 3, now. They followed Ortega down the hall. Torres was waiting 3 other agents with him. He gestured for Helena to sit. Judge Briggs, I'll be direct. We've been monitoring racial disparities in Ridgemont schools for 6 months. Your arrest triggered flags in our system. When we saw the body cam footage, we knew we had something bigger than a single incident. How much bigger? Torres pulled out a file. In the past 18 months, Ridgemont schools have had 47 incidents involving black students or parents that resulted in police intervention. 47. White students or parents 3, and all 3 were actual crimes. Weapons, drugs, assault. The black incidents. Things like disruptive behavior, trespassing, failure to comply. Helena's chest tightened. 47 families treated like criminals. And none of them had your resources, none of them were judges, most of them are working class, single parents, immigrants, people who can't fight back. But you can, which is why we need you to go forward with this. I was already planning to. Good, because we're building a pattern and practice case. Your arrest is the tip of the iceberg, but we need you to be visible, to be vocal, to show other victims it's safe to come forward. What about Trudeau and Whitmore and Burke? Torres smiled. It wasn't friendly. We're executing search warrants as we speak. Phones, computers, email accounts. If they coordinated this, and we believe they did, we'll prove it. And then they're looking at conspiracy charges, civil rights violations, false imprisonment. We're talking years in federal prison. Helena absorbed this. Years. Real consequences. Not just terminations or suspensions. Prison? What do you need from me? Everything you have. Every document, every recording, every witness. And we need you to testify before a grand jury when the time comes. Done. One more thing. We believe this conspiracy goes beyond these 3 men. We think there are others involved. School board members, police supervisors, maybe even city officials, so you need to be careful. These people have power, and cornered powerful people are dangerous. Helena thought about the threatening photo, the anonymous email, the Facebook posts. I'm already being threatened. We know. We're monitoring your communications. Any direct threats will be prosecuted. But Judge Briggs, watch your back. These people thought they could silence you with an arrest. When that didn't work, they might try other methods. After the meeting, Helena returned to the courtroom. Whitaker had recused himself. A different judge, Maria Gonzalez, someone Helena actually respected, had taken over. Judge Gonzalez reviewed the body cam footage, reviewed the dispatch logs, reviewed the timeline. Her face grew darker with each piece of evidence. Ms. Chen, Gonzalez said to the prosecutor, I've reviewed the evidence, all of it, and I'm struggling to understand why your office filed these charges in the first place. Chen stood. Your Honor, we have sworn statements from 2 police officers. You have false statements that are directly contradicted by video evidence, time-stamped dispatch logs, and multiple witness accounts. Ms. Chen, did you review this evidence before filing? I relied on the police report, which was a lie, a fabrication. Ms. Chen, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I suggest you answer carefully. Did anyone pressure you to file these charges? Silence. Chen's face went pale. Ms. Chen, Your Honor. I received a call from someone in the Commonwealth Attorney's office suggesting that this case warranted prosecution. Who called you? I'd rather not say. I'm ordering you to say. Chen looked sick. Commonwealth Attorney Edmund Hartley. The courtroom gasped. Hartley was the top prosecutor in the county, elected, political, ambitious, and Burke's closest ally. Gonzalez's eyes narrowed. Mr. Hartley called you personally to demand prosecution of a sitting judge. He said it was important to show that no one is above the law. Did he tell you to review the evidence first? He said the evidence was clear. Except it isn't. It's the opposite of clear. It shows an innocent woman was illegally arrested. Gonzalez turned to Helena. Judge Briggs, I am dismissing all charges against you with prejudice. The Commonwealth has failed to present any credible evidence of wrongdoing. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the Attorney General's office for investigation of prosecutorial misconduct, conspiracy, to violate civil rights and abuse of process. Chen sat down hard. In addition, Gonzalez continued, I am issuing a judicial order for preservation of all evidence related to this case. Any destruction or modification of evidence will result in criminal contempt charges. And I am placing Officers Trudeau and Kowalski on a judicial notice to appear. They will testify under oath about their actions, and if they committed perjury in their reports, they will face criminal charges. Helena stood. Your Honor, I'd like to make a statement. Go ahead. For the record, I want it known that I am Judge Helena Briggs, 9th District Circuit Court. I have served this community for 23 years. I have presided over thousands of cases. I have upheld the law fairly and impartially. Yesterday, I was arrested for doing nothing more than picking up my 9-year-old niece from school. I was handcuffed in front of children. I was accused of crimes I didn't commit. I was detained, processed, and held in a cell for hours. And through it all, I complied with every instruction, followed every rule, and maintained my dignity. The courtroom was silent. But I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm speaking for every black parent who's been treated like a criminal at their child's school, for every black student who's been suspended for things white students do without consequence, for every black person who's been told to stay quiet, to accept injustice, to be grateful they weren't hurt worse. I'm speaking for every person who doesn't have the resources to fight back. And I'm saying this ends now. This systematic discrimination ends now. This conspiracy of silence ends now. Because I will not be silent. I will not go away quietly. And I will make sure everyone involved in this faces justice. The gallery erupted in applause. Gonzalez didn't stop it. She let it happen. When the noise died down, Gonzalez spoke, Judge Briggs, on behalf of the judiciary, I apologize for what was done to you. This should never have happened, and I promise you we will ensure it doesn't happen again. Helena nodded. Thank you, Your Honor. You're free to go. Case dismissed. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Cameras, microphones, questions shouted from every direction. Judge Briggs, what's your reaction to the dismissal? Will you sue the police department? Do you think this was racially motivated? What message do you have for other victims? Marcus tried to clear a path, but Helena stopped him. It's okay. I'll talk. She faced the cameras, took a breath, and spoke. Today, the charges against me were dismissed because they should never have been filed. The evidence proves I did nothing wrong. But this isn't about me. This is about a pattern of discrimination that's been happening in our schools and our police departments for years. This is about black families being targeted, criminalized, and silenced. And this is about a conspiracy between school officials, police officers, and elected leaders to maintain that system of discrimination. Are you saying there was a conspiracy to arrest you? I'm saying the evidence will speak for itself. Phone records, email chains, coordinated timing, false police reports. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. And everyone involved will answer for it. What do you want to see happen? I want accountability. Real accountability. Not just suspensions or transfers. Criminal charges, federal prosecution, prison time for those who violated civil rights, and systematic reform so this never happens to another family. Some people are saying you're making this about race when it's really about following rules. I followed over every rule. I had authorization. I had documentation. I complied with every instruction. And I was still arrested. So yes, this is about race. Because white parents didn't get stopped, didn't get questioned, didn't get arrested. Only the black woman who dared to file a complaint about discrimination. That's not about rules. That's about control. That's about power. And that's about racism. The reporter who'd asked the question looked uncomfortable. Good. Judge Briggs, what's your message to young black children who saw you arrested? Helena's voice softened. My message is this. What happened to me was wrong, but I'm fighting back, and I want you to know that you have the right to be safe. You have the right to be treated fairly. You have the right to speak up when you see injustice, and you have adults in your life who will fight for you even when the system tries to silence us. Don't be afraid. Be brave. Be loud. Be proud of who you are, because they want to break us, but we're unbreakable. More questions, more cameras. But Helena was done. She pushed through the crowd. Marcus beside her, Ortega clearing a path. In the parking garage, Helena finally let herself breathe. You were incredible in there, Marcus said. I was angry. Same thing in your case. Helena's phone rang. Her mother. Mom? Baby girl, I just watched the whole thing online. Are you okay? I'm fine. Better than fine. We won. This isn't over, though, is it? No, it's just beginning. But Mom, we're going to win. All of it. The whole fight. I know you will. I raised you to be a warrior." After they hung up, Helena checked her messages. Hundreds of them. Support from colleagues, congratulations from activists, interview requests from national media, and one text from Sarah Chen, "You did it. Thank you for fighting for all of us." Helena replied, "Thank you for being willing to testify. We're going to need people like you." At 2:00 p.m., Helena's phone rang again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Judge Briggs." A man's voice, shaking, scared. "This is Officer Daniel Kowalski." Helena's grip tightened on the phone. "Officer Kowalski, the man who helped arrest me yesterday. I need to talk to you. Off the record, please." "Everything I say is on the record. I'm a judge. I don't do off the record." "Then I'm screwed, but I'm calling anyway because I can't do this anymore. I can't lie. I can't be part of this." Helena pulled over to the side of the road. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Trudeau set you up. He told me what to do, what to say, how to make it look. He said it was orders from higher up, that someone important wanted you arrested. I went along with it because I'm new, because I didn't want to make waves, because I'm a coward." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I saw the video. I saw what it looks like from the outside. And I realized I helped destroy an innocent woman's life. I helped traumatize a kid. I became exactly the kind of cop I swore I'd never be." His voice cracked. "I have a daughter. She's 7. And if someone treated my wife the way we treated you, I'd want to kill them. I can't live with this." Helena was quiet for a long moment. "Officer Kowalski, are you willing to testify under oath to everything you just told me?" "Yes." "Then call this number." She gave him Ortega's direct line. "Tell her everything, every detail, every conversation with Trudeau, every order you were given, and I promise you, if you tell the truth now, I will make sure that counts in your favor." "Thank you. I don't deserve your mercy, but thank you." "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because the truth matters more than vengeance." After they hung up, Helena sat in her car for 5 minutes. Processing, absorbing. A cop had just flipped. A witness from inside the conspiracy was willing to talk. This changed everything. She called Torres immediately. "We have a cooperating witness. Officer Kowalski just called me. He's ready to testify." "We'll pick him up within the hour. Judge Briggs, this is huge. With his testimony, we can prove conspiracy. We can nail Trudeau, and we can work our way up the chain to whoever gave the orders." "Burke? We'll see. But yeah, probably Burke." Helena drove home. When she walked through the door, Zoe ran to her, wrapped her arms around her waist. "You won. Grandma showed me on her iPad. You won." Helena hugged her tight. "We won, baby. We won." But even as she said it, Helena knew the truth. They'd won one battle. The war was far from over. And somewhere out there, the people who'd orchestrated her arrest were planning their next move. But that evening, as Helena sat with Zoe helping her with homework, her phone buzzed with a message from Torres. "Search warrants executed. You need to see what we found." Helena called him immediately. "What did you find? Can you come to the federal building tonight? Bring your attorney. You're going to want to see this in person." An hour later, Helena and Marcus sat in a secure conference room surrounded by boxes of evidence. Torres spread documents across the table like he was revealing a hand of cards that would win the game. "We hit Whitmore's office, Burke's home, and Trudeau's apartment simultaneously at 4 p.m. What we found." Torres shook his head. "Judge Briggs, this conspiracy goes back 8 months, long before your complaint about Zoe's teacher." He pulled out the first document, an email dated February 14th, from Burke to Whitmore. Subject line, "The Briggs Problem." Helena read it aloud. "Richard, we need to discuss Judge Briggs. Her rulings are undermining everything we've built. She dismissed the Thompson case, threw out the Martinez evidence, and now she's questioning our disciplinary policies. We can't have a judge who doesn't understand how things work. We need to find a way to neutralize her influence." Marcus leaned forward. "Neutralize her influence? That's explicit intent." "It gets better," Torres said. He pulled out another email. March 3rd. Whitmore to Burke. "Briggs filed a formal complaint with the board about Patterson's classroom management. She's claiming racial bias. She's requesting a full investigation. If this goes forward, it'll expose our suspension rates. The ACLU will have a field day." Burke's response, same day. "Unacceptable. We need to shut this down. I'll talk to Hartley about our options. In the meantime, document everything. Every time she comes to that school, every interaction, every word. Build a file. If we need to move against her, we'll have ammunition." Helena felt cold. They were watching me. For months. Not just watching, Planning. Torres pulled out a third document, a text message chain between Burke and Commonwealth Attorney Edmund Hartley. April 10th. Burke, the Briggs situation is escalating. She's not backing down on the complaint. We need a stronger approach. Hartley, what do you have in mind? Burke, trespassing charge. We can claim she's violating school policies. Get her arrested, public record. Humiliate her. Force her to recuse herself from any cases involving the district. Hartley, that's aggressive and risky. She's a judge. Burke, that's exactly why we need to do it. Show everyone that nobody's untouchable. Plus, it'll scare off other parents who might be thinking of filing complaints. Hartley, you'd need police cooperation and evidence. Burke, I can arrange both. Just tell me you won't block it when the charges come through. Hartley, I'll need deniability, but if the arrest is clean, I'll back it. Helena's hands were shaking. They planned this for months. This was never about trespassing. This was about silencing me. And intimidating everyone else, Marcus added. Classic authoritarian playbook. Make an example of the strongest voice of opposition. Show everyone else what happens when you challenge the system. Torres pulled out more documents. A memo from Burke to Whitmore dated April 28th laying out the plan in detail. Contact Officer Trudeau specifically because he had a history of aggressive arrests involving black suspects. File a false 911 complaint using a burner phone. Have Trudeau waiting at the school before Helena arrived. Escalate the situation until they had justification for arrest. Ensure maximum publicity to maximize the humiliation. They wanted it to be public, Helena said. They wanted everyone to see. And they wanted you to fight back, Torres said. Look at this. He pulled out another document. An email from Burke to Hartley. The key is getting her to react. Black woman angry resisting arrest, the optics play into every stereotype. Even if the charges don't stick, the damage to her reputation will be permanent. Judges need to be above reproach. An arrest record, even if dismissed, raises questions about judgment and temperament. Helena stood up, paced the room. They tried to destroy me. My career, my reputation, everything I've built for 23 years. Because I filed a complaint about a teacher treating my niece unfairly. Not just that, Torres said quietly. We found something else. He pulled out a folder marked Judicial Review Committee. Inside were documents detailing a plan to bring formal disciplinary charges against Helena before the State Judicial Board. The complaints would allege inappropriate bias prejudgment of cases and conduct unbecoming a judge. The evidence her arrest for assault on a police officer. They were going to use my arrest to get me disbarred, Helena said. That was the endgame. Remove you from the bench. Make sure you could never rule against them again. Make sure no other judge would dare question their authority. Marcus was reading through the documents, his face getting darker. This isn't just conspiracy to violate civil rights. This is obstruction of justice. This is tampering with the judiciary. These are federal crimes that carry serious prison time. 10 to 20 years, Torres confirmed, each. And that's before we add the civil rights violations, the false imprisonment, the witness intimidation. What about Trudeau and Kowalski? Kowalski's cooperating fully. He's given us everything. The phone calls from Trudeau explaining the plan, the instructions to escalate the situation, the coaching on what to write in the report. The kid's clean, just stupid and scared. We're offering him immunity in exchange for testimony. And Trudeau, Torres smiled grimly. Trudeau lawyered up immediately, refused to talk, but his phone records are singing. He had 17 calls with Burke in the week before your arrest. Text messages coordinating timing. Photos he took of you at the school on previous Wednesdays, stalking you basically to establish your routine. Helena felt sick. He followed me. Multiple times. We found surveillance photos on his phone. You and Zoe walk into your car. You signing in at the office. You waiting in the pickup line? He was building a case, or at least creating the appearance of one. What about the body cam footage, the missing minutes before he turned it on? We recovered the full footage from the backup server. Trudeau thought he'd deleted it, but our techs found it. And you were right. There were 3 minutes before he approached your car where he was on his phone. We pulled the phone records. He was talking to Whitmore, confirming you'd arrived, getting final authorization to proceed. Marcus whistled. That's direct evidence of coordination, real-time conspiracy. And Whitmore's phone records show he was simultaneously on the phone with Burke. It's a 3-way conspiracy chain. Burke gives the order. Whitmore confirms your presence. Trudeau executes the arrest. All coordinated, all documented. Helena sat back down. The magnitude of it was overwhelming. This wasn't just a few bad actors. This was a systematic effort involving elected officials, school administrators, and law enforcement. An actual conspiracy to destroy someone's life because she dared to challenge their authority. When does this go to the grand jury? Friday, day after tomorrow. We're presenting the full case. Burke, Whitmore, Trudeau, and Hartley. We're charging all four with conspiracy to violate civil rights, obstruction of justice, and official misconduct. Burke and Hartley are also getting hit with abuse of power. Trudeau's getting false arrest, false imprisonment, and filing a false police report. What do you need from me? Your testimony, you'll be the first witness. Tell the grand jury everything. What happened, how it felt, what it did to you and your family. Make it real for them. Make them understand this wasn't just a procedural error, it was a targeted attack on a black woman who refused to stay quiet. Helena nodded. I'll be there. The next day, the story exploded nationally. The Washington Post ran a front-page article, Federal Prosecutors Charge, Todd School Board Member Police Officer in Conspiracy to Arrest Judge. CNN dedicated an entire segment to it. MSNBC had constitutional law experts debating the implications. Fox News predictably questioned whether the charges were politically motivated, but the evidence was too strong to ignore. The emails, the text messages, the phone records, even conservative commentators who normally backed law enforcement were admitting this looked bad. Helena's phone didn't stop ringing. Interview requests from every major outlet. Book deal offers. Speaking invitation. And messages from dozens of parents, black, brown, immigrants sharing their own stories of discrimination at Ridgemont schools. One message stood out, from a woman named Keisha Williams. Judge Briggs, my son was suspended for 3 days for threatening behavior because he argued with a teacher who called him articulate, like she was surprised a black kid could speak properly. I didn't fight it because I was scared. I didn't want to make it worse. But watching you fight it made me realize I should have fought too. I'm filing a complaint now. Thank you for showing us how. Helena replied immediately, thank you for being brave. Contact my attorney Marcus Lewin. We're building a class action case. Your son's story matters. By Thursday afternoon, Marcus had 43 families ready to join the lawsuit. Parents who'd been too afraid to speak up before. Students who'd been suspended, expelled, or criminalized for minor infractions while their white peers got warnings. Teachers who'd witnessed discrimination but stayed silent to protect their jobs. This is bigger than we imagined, Marcus said during their afternoon call. We're not just taking on 4 conspirators, we're taking on an entire system of institutional racism that's been operating unchecked for years. Good, Helena said. Let's burn it all down and rebuild it right. Friday morning arrived with unusual weight. Grand jury testimony day. Helena dressed carefully, professional, but not intimidating. She wanted the jurors to see her as human, as someone who'd been hurt, as a mother figure who'd only wanted to protect her niece. Diane drove her to the federal courthouse. You nervous? Terrified. You don't look it. 23 years of practice, I can look calm when I'm dying inside. What are you going to say? The truth, all of it, no holding back. The grand jury room was smaller than Helena expected. 23 citizens sitting in rows watching her with curious eyes. Torres stood off to the side. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney David Chen guided her through preliminary questions, establishing her identity, her position, her history. Then came the heart of it. Judge Briggs, can you tell the grand jury what happened on Wednesday, October 23rd at approximately 3:45 p.m.? Helena took a breath and told them everything. The arrival at school, the police approach, the escalation, the handcuffs, Zoe's screams, the humiliation of being processed like a criminal, the hours in a holding cell, the arraignment before a biased judge. Every detail, every emotion, every moment of violation and rage and grief. She told them about Zoe's nightmares, about how her niece now flinched when she saw police cars, about how a 9-year-old child had learned that the system her aunt dedicated her life to could turn on them in an instant. She told them about the other families, the 43 stories that had emerged. The pattern of discrimination that had operated in plain sight because nobody with power had cared enough to look. They didn't just arrest me, Helena said. They tried to erase me. They tried to use my arrest, a false arrest, a coordinated attack to destroy my credibility, my career, and my ability to serve justice. They wanted to silence me, and they wanted to send a message to every other black parent, every other person who might dare to challenge their authority, stay quiet, or this happens to you. She showed them the emails, read Burke's words aloud, showed them the timeline, made them see the conspiracy unfolding in real time. These men didn't make a mistake, Helena concluded. They made a choice A calculated, deliberate choice to weaponize law enforcement and the judicial system against someone who threatened their control, and they did it knowing the damage it would cause, knowing they were violating my constitutional rights, knowing they were traumatizing a child. They did it anyway, because they thought they were untouchable. The grand jury deliberated for 40 minutes. When they returned, the foreman announced their decision, true bills on all counts. All 4 men would face federal prosecution. Helena walked out of the courthouse to a mob of reporters. This time she didn't stop. She'd said everything that needed saying. Now it was time to let the system she believed in, the real system, the one based on evidence and truth and justice, do its work. But that evening, as she sat with Zoe reading bedtime stories, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, just like the threatening photo from days earlier. Helena's stomach clenched as she opened it. It was a single sentence. "You won your case, but some stones are better left unturned." Helena screenshot it immediately, forwarded it to Torres, called Ortega. This was witness intimidation, criminal tampering. She wouldn't let them scare her into silence. An hour later, Torres called back. "We traced the number, burner phone, purchased with cash at a gas station in Maryland. No cameras, no way to identify the buyer." "So they're still trying to threaten me?" "Yeah, which means we're getting close to something they're desperate to protect. Judge Briggs, I'm assigning protective detail. Plainclothes agents. They'll monitor your house, follow you to court, make sure..." "No." "Helena." "I said no. I won't live in fear. I won't let them see me scared. If they want to come after me, let them. Every threat they make is another crime to prosecute." "That's reckless." "That's standing my ground. Torres, the moment I accept protection, the moment I change my life because of their threats, they win. They get to control me through fear. I won't give them that power." Torres sighed. "At least let us increase patrols in your neighborhood and install a security system and keep your phone on you at all times." "Fine, but no visible protection. No agents parked outside. I won't give them the satisfaction." After she hung up, Helena found Diane standing in the doorway. "You heard that. You're being stubborn. I'm being strategic. They want me to act like a victim, to hide, to accept that I'm vulnerable, but I'm not. I'm a judge who knows the law. I'm a black woman who survived worse, and I'm going to walk into court every day with my head high until this is over. And if they escalate, then I'll deal with it, but I won't live in fear." The following week moved fast. Burke, Whitmore, Trudeau, and Hartley were all arrested. Perp walks for the cameras. Mugshots released to the public. Bail hearings where prosecutors argued they were flight risks and dangers to the community. Burke made bail $500,000. His lawyer, a slick DC operative named Gerald Moss, immediately went on the offensive in the media. "My client is a dedicated public servant who's being persecuted for doing his job. Judge Briggs has a personal vendetta against the Ridgemont school system. She filed a frivolous complaint, was rightfully asked to leave school property, and is now using her position to weaponize federal prosecutors against anyone who dares to hold her accountable. This is an abuse of power, plain and simple." Helena watched the press conference with Marcus. "He's trying to flip the narrative." "Let him try. We have the evidence, emails, texts, phone records. The jury will see through his lies." "What about public opinion?" "Divided. Your supporters see this as justice. His supporters see it as overreach. But Helena, that doesn't matter. We're not trying this case in the court of public opinion. We're trying it in federal court with rules of evidence and professional judges." "When's trial?" "Probably 6 months. Federal cases move slowly. But in the meantime, we're moving forward with the civil suit. Class action on behalf of all 43 families. We're suing the school district, the police department, the school board, and each individual conspirator personally." "How much compensatory and punitive damages?" "We're asking for $50 million, probably settle for 20, but the money's not the point. The point is forcing systematic change, new policies, new training, new oversight, making sure this never happens again." That night, Helena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the threatening text, about how far these men had gone to protect their power, about what they might do if they felt truly cornered. At 2:30 a.m., she heard something, a sound outside, footsteps on gravel. Helena grabbed her phone, dialed 911, and moved quietly to the window. Her street was dark, empty, but she saw movement, a shadow near her car. 911, what's your emergency?" "This is Judge Helena Briggs. There's someone on my property. Send officers immediately." "Stay inside, Judge Briggs. Units are en route." Helena watched the shadow move. They were bending down, doing something to her car, planting something. Slashing tires. Sirens approached fast. The shadow straightened, looked toward the sound, and ran. Helena caught a glimpse, male average height, dark clothing. Nothing distinctive. Police arrived within 3 minutes. They searched the property, found no one. But when they checked her car, they found something that made Helena's blood run cold. A tracking device, magnetic, attached to the undercarriage. Someone had been following her movements, monitoring her, stalking her. "How long has this been here?" Helena asked. The officer examined it. "Hard to say. Could be days, could be weeks. We'll dust for prints, but these things are usually clean." Helena called Torres immediately despite the hour. "They planted a tracking device on my car. They've been following me." "Jesus, okay, I'm sending a team now. We'll sweep your house, your office, your car. If there are more devices, we'll find them." "Torres, they're escalating. The threatening texts weren't enough. Now they're physically stalking me." "I know, which is why you need protection. What I need is for you to catch whoever did this. Get cameras from my neighbors. Get traffic cameras from the street. Find out who planted that device and arrest them." "We will, but Helena, please, let us help keep you safe." Helena looked at Zoe's bedroom door. Her niece was still sleeping, unaware of the danger outside. "Fine, but discreet. I won't let them see me scared." The FBI swept her house the next morning. They found 2 more devices, one in her home office hidden behind books, one in her garage attached to the wall near where she parked. Someone had been inside her house, had violated her sanctuary, had been listening to everything. "How long?" Helena asked. The tech examined the devices. "These are sophisticated, commercial grade, not something you buy at Radio Shack. The battery life suggests they've been active for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer." 2 weeks, since before her arrest. They'd been preparing, gathering intelligence, learning her patterns, her conversations, her vulnerabilities. Helena felt violated in a way that was different from the arrest. That had been public performative meant to humiliate. This was intimate, invasive, predatory. "Who has access to commercial surveillance equipment?" Torres pulled up a file on his tablet. "Private investigators, security firms, law enforcement, and before you ask, yes, Trudeau worked part-time for a private security company before he became a cop. They specialize in surveillance." So he could have planted these, or arranged for someone else to plant them. "We're pulling his work records now, finding out who he might have contacted. But Helena, this means they were listening when you talked to me, when you talked to Marcus, when you discussed strategy with Diane. They heard everything." Helena's mind raced. The threatening text, they knew exactly when to send it. They knew I'd just testified to the grand jury. They were listening. Which means they also know we found the devices. They know we're investigating, and they know they're in serious trouble. What does that make them? Desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. That afternoon, Marcus called with news. Burke's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss. They're claiming prosecutorial misconduct, selective prosecution, political bias, every defense in the book. Will it work? Not a chance. The evidence is overwhelming, but it'll delay things, probably add another month before trial. A month where they can keep threatening me, keep trying to intimidate witnesses, keep manipulating the system. Which is why we need to go public. Really public. I'm talking national media, 60 Minutes, morning shows, a tell-all interview where you lay out the entire conspiracy, make it impossible for them to hide. Helena thought about it. Part of her wanted to stay quiet, let the evidence speak for itself. But another part, the part that understood power and narrative, knew Marcus was right. Set it up, but I choose the outlet. I want someone who'll tell the full story, not just sound bites and drama. Marcus set up an interview with PBS NewsHour. Serious journalism, full context, 30 minutes of uninterrupted time to tell her story completely. The interview aired on Friday night. Helena sat across from Judy Woodruff, the camera tight on her face, and told America everything. The arrest, the conspiracy, the surveillance, the threats, the systematic discrimination that had targeted dozens of families before her. "What do you want people to understand?" Woodruff asked. "That this can happen to anyone. I'm a judge. I have resources, connections, legal expertise. And they still almost destroyed me. Imagine being a single parent working 2 jobs. Imagine being an immigrant who doesn't speak English fluently. Imagine being someone without power trying to challenge a system that's designed to silence you. That's what's been happening in schools across this country, and it has to stop." Some people say you're making this about race when it's really about following rules. I followed every rule. I had authorization. I complied with every instruction, and I was still arrested. So when people say it's not about race, I ask them, Show me one white parent at that school who was handcuffed for picking up their child. Show me one. You can't, because it didn't happen, because the system treats black families differently, and anyone who denies that is either lying or willfully blind. The interview went viral. 10 million views in 24 hours. 15 million by the end of the weekend. Hashtags trending worldwide. Protests organized in 12 cities demanding justice and systematic reform. But Monday morning brought unexpected news. Trudeau's lawyer called a press conference. Helena watched it live with Marcus and Diane. Trudeau sat at a table, his lawyer beside him, looking defeated, broken. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. I want to apologize to Judge Briggs and her family for what I did. I was wrong. I violated her rights. I lied in my report. And I participated in a conspiracy to silence someone who was trying to protect children from discrimination. He took a shaky breath. I became a cop because I wanted to help people, but I let politics and power corrupt that. I let Warren Burke manipulate me. I let my fear of standing up control my actions. And I destroyed an innocent woman's life because I was a coward. His lawyer tried to stop him, but Trudeau kept talking. I'm pleading guilty to all charges. I'm accepting whatever punishment the court deems appropriate. And I'm cooperating fully with federal investigators. Because Judge Briggs was right. Some fights are worth having, and this is one of them. I just wish I'd been brave enough to stand with her instead of against her. Helena watched stunned. Trudeau was falling on his sword, giving up everything to tell the truth. Why? She asked. Why now? Marcus pulled up his phone. Because his daughter saw the interview. She's 14. She texted him asking if it was true. If he really arrested a judge for picking up her niece. If he really lied about it. And he couldn't lie to his kid, so he cracked. Helena felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. Recognition that people could change, that even those who'd hurt her were still human, still capable of conscience, still able to choose truth over power. His testimony will seal the case against Burke and Hartley, Marcus said. Good, let it. The next 3 weeks moved like a freight train. Trudeau's guilty plea, Kowalski's immunity agreement, both officers testifying before the grand jury. Additional charges filed against Burke for witness tampering after they traced the threatening text to a burner phone he'd purchased. Hartley suspended from his position as Commonwealth Attorney pending trial. And through it all, Helena kept working, presiding over her regular docket, ruling on motions, hearing cases, showing everyone that they hadn't broken her, that she was still Judge Helena Briggs, still serving justice, still unshakable. But late at night, alone in her bedroom, she let herself feel the weight of it, the violation, the fear, the anger that never quite went away. She'd won battle after battle, but the war had cost her something, a piece of innocence she'd never get back, a belief that the system she'd dedicated her life to would protect her if she played by the rules. Because now she knew the truth. The system only protected you if you had power, and even then, only if you were willing to fight like hell. She decided she would fight. But not alone. Not anymore. The trial date was set for January 12th. Federal Courthouse. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding, a no-nonsense Reagan appointee who'd spent 40 years on the bench and had zero tolerance for corruption. Morrison had reviewed the evidence during preliminary hearings and made her position clear. This court will not tolerate any attempt to weaponize law enforcement against citizens exercising their constitutional rights. The defendants should understand the gravity of these charges. Helena sat in the gallery for the first day of trial. Marcus had offered to keep her away to spare her the trauma of reliving everything. But she'd refused. She needed to be there, needed to look Burke and Hartley and Whitmore in their eyes and show them they hadn't won. The courtroom was packed. Media in the back rows. Activists filling the gallery. The 43 families from the class action suit, many of them. There to support Helena and watch justice unfold. And sitting in the front row of the defense side, Burke's wife and 2 adult children looking shell-shocked and furious. Burke entered in an expensive suit head high, playing the role of wrongly accused public servant. Whitmore looked smaller, somehow. Diminished like the weight of his choices had physically shrunk him. Hartley was all lawyer confidence, whispering with his defense team, probably still believing he could argue his way out of this. Assistant U.S. Attorney David Chen opened with a statement that hit like a sledgehammer. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about power, about what happens when people who have it decide to use it as a weapon. The evidence will show that these three defendants, Warren Burke, Richard Whitmore, and Edmund Hartley, conspired to arrest an innocent woman. Not because she committed a crime, not because she posed a danger, but because she dared to challenge their authority, because she filed a complaint about discrimination, because she wouldn't stay quiet, and they thought they could destroy her and get away with it. Chen walked the jury through the evidence. The emails, the text messages, the phone records, the timeline that proved premeditation, the tracking devices, the false police reports. Every piece of documentation that showed this wasn't a mistake, it was a coordinated attack. Burke's lawyer, Gerald Moss, tried to paint a different picture. My client is a dedicated public servant who spent 30 years working to improve schools in this community. He made difficult decisions. He held people accountable. And yes, sometimes those decisions made him unpopular, but making unpopular decisions isn't a crime. What the prosecution is calling a conspiracy is simply routine communication between officials trying to maintain order in their institutions. But when Chen put Trudeau on the stand, that narrative collapsed. Trudeau sat in the witness box looking like he'd aged 10 years in 2 months. His voice was steady but hollow as he described the conspiracy from the inside. Burke called me in April, Trudeau said. He told me there was a judge causing problems at Ridgemont Elementary, said she was filing false complaints about racism trying to stir up trouble. He said the community needed someone to stand up to her, to show her that actions have consequences. Did he specifically ask you to arrest Judge Briggs? Chen asked. Not directly, not at first. He said he'd create an opportunity, that he'd make sure she violated a policy so we'd have justification. He asked if I'd be willing to respond aggressively if called. And you agreed? Yes. Trudeau's voice cracked. I agreed because Burke made it sound like I'd be protecting kids, protecting the school. He made it sound righteous, but it wasn't. It was revenge. Tell the jury what happened on October 23rd. Trudeau walked through the entire plan. The fake 911 call Burke arranged using a burner phone, the instructions to be at the school before Helena arrived, the escalation tactics he was told to use, the coaching on how to write the report to make it look justified. Burke told me to get her angry, Trudeau said, to push her until she reacted. He said even a small reaction touching my hand, raising her voice, could be classified as assault if I framed it right, and if she stayed calm I should just arrest her for trespassing. Either way, she'd end up in handcuffs. That was the goal. Public humiliation. Did you express any concerns about this plan? I should have, but I didn't. I told myself she must have done something wrong, that Burke wouldn't lie, that maybe she was actually dangerous. Trudeau looked directly at Helena. I was wrong. She did nothing wrong. I lied in my report. I violated her rights, and I destroyed her family's sense of safety because I was too much of a coward to stand up to a politician. The cross-examination tried to paint Trudeau as unreliable, as someone trying to save his own skin by implicating others. But the phone records backed up every word. 17 calls between Trudeau and Burke in the week before the arrest. Text messages coordinating timing. Emails discussing strategy. When Kowalski testified, he corroborated everything. The two officers' testimonies formed an unbreakable account of conspiracy. Then Sarah Chen took the stand, the parent who'd overheard Whitmore's phone call. She was nervous, her hands shaking as Chen guided her through preliminary questions. But when she got to the critical moment, her voice was clear. I was in the office after Judge Briggs was arrested. Principal Whitmore was on the phone. He said, "It went exactly as planned. She's in custody. The problem solved." Then he laughed. He was laughing about her arrest. Did he say who he was talking to? He mentioned someone named Burke. He said Burke will be pleased. This sends the right message. Gerald Moss tried to discredit her on cross. Mrs. Chen, you claim you heard this phone call clearly, but the office is large. There were other people around. How can you be certain? Because I was standing 3 feet from him, Sarah interrupted. Because his words made my blood run cold. Because I knew in that moment I was witnessing something evil. And because I couldn't stay silent about it. The courtroom was silent. Even Moss seemed shaken. Over the next week, the prosecution built their case piece by piece. FBI agents testified about the tracking devices. Tech experts explained the surveillance equipment. Financial analysts showed how Burke had used campaign funds to purchase burner phones. Ortega testified about the body cam footage and the missing minutes that proved Trudeau was coordinating with Whitmore in real time. And then Helena took the stand. She'd prepared for this, rehearsed with Marcus, knew every question Chen would ask. But walking to that witness box, raising her right hand, swearing to tell the truth, it all felt surreal. She'd spent 23 years as the judge. Now she was the witness, the victim, the person seeking justice rather than dispensing it. Chen started gently, establishing her credentials, her history, her relationship with Zoe, the complaint she'd filed about discriminatory discipline practices. "Judge Briggs, why did you file that complaint?" "Because my niece came home crying, because she'd been punished for defending another student who was being racially profiled, because I'd seen this pattern before in my courtroom, black children disciplined more harshly for identical behaviors, and because I took an oath to uphold justice. That doesn't stop when I leave the courthouse." "What happened after you filed the complaint?" "Things changed, subtle at first. Whitmore stopped returning my calls. Other parents who'd been friendly became distant. I felt watched, monitored, like I'd crossed some invisible line." "Tell the jury what happened on October 23rd. Helena took a breath and told them everything, every detail, every moment of fear and violation and rage. She described Zoe's screams, the feeling of handcuffs cutting into her wrists, the hours in a cell wondering if her career was over, the arraignment where a biased judge tried to use his power to humiliate her further. "They wanted to break me," Helena said. "They wanted to show every other parent, every other person who might think about challenging them what happens when you speak up. They wanted to use the same system I'd dedicated my life to, as a weapon against me." "How did this affect your family?" Helena's voice caught. "My niece has nightmares. She's afraid of police now. She asks me every day if they're coming back, if I'm safe, if she's safe. A 9-year-old child shouldn't have to live with that fear, but she does, because these men decided their power was more important than her innocence." Gerald Moss tried to shake her on cross-examination, tried to suggest she'd been combative, that she'd escalated the situation, that her prior rulings showed bias against law enforcement. "Judge Briggs, isn't it true that you've dismissed charges against defendants accused of resisting arrest?" "When the evidence showed the arrests were unlawful, yes, that's my job, to protect constitutional rights, even when it's unpopular." "And isn't it true that you've publicly criticized police practices?" "I've criticized unconstitutional practices. There's a difference. You've made it clear you don't trust law enforcement. I've made it clear I don't trust law enforcement that violates people's rights, and given what happened to me, that skepticism was justified." Moss tried several more angles, but Helena didn't crack. Every answer was measured, precise, backed by evidence. She wasn't emotional or defensive. She was judicial, factual, unshakable. When she stepped down, she saw several jurors wiping their eyes. The defense tried to create reasonable doubt. Burke took the stand and claimed everything was a misunderstanding, that his emails were taken out of context, that he'd simply been discussing school policy with Whitmore, not plotting an arrest. "I never instructed anyone to arrest Judge Briggs. I never coordinated with Officer Trudeau, and I certainly never placed tracking devices on her property. The prosecution is constructing a conspiracy theory from routine communication between officials." But Chen destroyed him on cross, pulled up email after email showing intent, showed the burner phone purchases, displayed the phone records proving 17 calls to Trudeau, confronted him with the text message where he'd written, "Get her angry, make it look justified." "Mr. Burke, how do we take that out of context?" Burke stammered, tried to explain, claimed it was about a different situation, but the dates matched. The context was clear. He was lying and everyone could see it. Hartley didn't testify. His lawyers knew he'd get destroyed. Instead, they tried to argue he'd simply been doing his job as Commonwealth attorney, that he'd relied on police reports he had no reason to doubt. But Chen showed the jury his text messages with Burke, the coordination, the agreement to show no one is above the law by prosecuting a judge on false charges. The consciousness of guilt was obvious. Whitmore was the most pathetic. He cried on the stand, claimed he'd been pressured by Burke, that he was just a school principal trying to maintain order, that he never meant for things to go so far. "I made mistakes," Whitmore said, tears streaming down his face. "I should have stood up to Burke. I should have stopped this, but I was afraid of losing my job, of becoming the target myself. I'm so sorry." The jury looked unmoved, because sorry didn't undo the damage. Sorry didn't erase Zoe's nightmares. Sorry didn't give Helena back the sense of safety these men had stolen. Closing arguments came on a Friday. Chen was powerful and precise, walking the jury through the evidence one final time, showing them how every piece fit together into an undeniable pattern of conspiracy. These men thought they were untouchable, Chen concluded. They thought their positions gave them immunity. They thought they could destroy an innocent woman and face no consequences. But they were wrong, Because we still live in a country where power doesn't place you above the law, where justice applies equally, and where conspiracies to violate civil rights will be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Judge Briggs stood up for what was right. Now it's your turn. Find these men guilty. Show them that nobody is above accountability. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Helena waited in a conference room with Marcus and Diane, unable to eat, unable to think about anything except the 12 strangers deciding her fate. When the call came, verdict reached Helena's hands were shaking. She walked back into that courtroom feeling like she was walking toward her own judgment. Because if they acquitted these men, if the jury decided the evidence wasn't enough, it would mean the system had failed her twice. Judge Morrison called the court to order. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights, how do you find the defendant, Warren Burke? Guilty. Helena's chest loosened. One word, but it carried the weight of justice. On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights, how do you find the defendant, Richard Whitmore? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights, how do you find the defendant, Edmund Hartley? Guilty. The foreman continued. Guilty on obstruction of justice. Guilty on official misconduct. Guilty on witness tampering for Burke. Guilty on every count. The courtroom erupted. Cheers from the gallery. Sobs from Burke's family. Reporters rushing out to file stories. Helena sat frozen, tears streaming down her face as 23 years of believing in the system was finally validated. Marcus grabbed her hand. You did it. You actually did it. We did it, Helena whispered. All of us. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Judge Morrison didn't hold back. Mr. Burke, you held a position of public trust. You were elected to serve children, to improve education, to make your community better. Instead, you weaponized your authority against a woman who dared to challenge discrimination. You coordinated a conspiracy that violated her constitutional rights, traumatized a child, and corrupted the institutions we depend on for justice. The damage you've caused is immeasurable. This court sentences you to 12 years in federal prison. Burke's face went white. His lawyer immediately filed notice of appeal, but everyone knew it was futile. The evidence was too strong, the conviction too solid. Mr. Whitmore, you were responsible for the safety and well-being of every child in your school. You betrayed that responsibility. You participated in a conspiracy to arrest a parent who was simply trying to protect her niece from discrimination. This court sentences you to 8 years in federal prison. Whitmore sobbed openly. His career was over, his reputation destroyed, everything he'd built for 30 years gone because he'd chosen power over principle. Mr. Hartley, you were sworn to uphold the law. Instead, you perverted it. You used your office to prosecute an innocent woman for political purposes. You corrupted the judicial system you were meant to serve. This court sentences you to 10 years in federal prison. Hartley showed no emotion, just stared straight ahead as his life collapsed around him. Helena watched them led away in handcuffs. The same handcuffs they'd put on her. The same system they'd weaponized, now being used to hold them accountable. Outside the courthouse, Helena faced the cameras one final time. Today, justice was served, but this isn't just about me. This is about the 43 families who've joined our class action lawsuit. This is about every person who's been discriminated against by systems that were supposed to protect them. This is about showing that power doesn't place you above accountability. What's next for you, a reporter asked. Systematic reform. We're negotiating a consent decree with the school district, new policies on discipline, independent oversight, training on implicit bias, and most importantly, accountability mechanisms so this can never happen again. Some people are calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm a judge who got arrested for picking up my niece. The real heroes are the people who stood up when they had no power, the parents who came forward despite their fear, the officers who told the truth even though it cost them their careers, the witnesses who testified knowing they might face retaliation. They're the heroes. What message do you have for other victims of discrimination? Helena looked directly into the camera. Don't stay silent. Document everything. Find your community. Use every legal tool available. And know that when you stand up, you're not alone. There are people who will fight with you, who will believe you, who will demand justice alongside you. It's hard. It's terrifying. But it's worth it, because the truth, once documented, cannot be erased. The civil settlement came through in March. $25 million split among the 43 families. More importantly, the consent decree mandated sweeping changes. Independent monitors, quarterly audits of suspension data disaggregated by race, mandatory bias training for all staff, and a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. The school board was completely replaced in a special election. Every incumbent who'd supported Burke lost. New leadership came in committed to equity and transparency. Ridgemont Elementary got a new principal, Ms. Rodriguez, the teacher who'd comforted Zoe during Helena's arrest. She immediately began implementing reforms. Helena returned to the bench in April. Her first day back, her colleagues gave her a standing ovation. 23 judges standing in respect for one of their own who'd faced injustice and fought back. But the work wasn't done. Helena began reviewing every case in her district where black defendants had been arrested by Trudeau over his 3-year career. She found pattern after pattern of false charges. Excessive force. Fabricated evidence. At least 17 cases needed to be reopened. 17 people whose lives had been damaged by a corrupt officer. She worked with the Public Defender's Office to file motions for new trials. Worked with the Attorney General to investigate every arrest Trudeau had made. Worked with civil rights organizations to identify other officers who might be operating the same way. The reforms spread beyond Ridgemont. Other districts saw what happened and preemptively changed their policies. The state legislature passed new laws on police accountability and school discipline. The Department of Justice opened investigations into 5 other school districts with similar disparities. Change was happening. Slowly, imperfectly, but happening. On a Wednesday in late May, exactly 7 months after her arrest, Helena returned to Ridgemont Elementary to pick up Zoe. She parked in the same spot, walked the same path, signed in at the same office. But this time, the staff greeted her warmly. This time, no police appeared. This time, she walked out with Zoe's hand in hers without fear. "Aunt Helena," Zoe asked as they drove home, "are the bad people gone?" "Some of them, but there are always going to be people who do bad things. The difference is now we know how to fight them, and we know we can win." "Are you still scared?" Helena thought about the question honestly. "Sometimes, but I'm more angry than scared, and anger is useful. It motivates you to change things." "I'm angry too." "I know, baby. That's okay. Use that anger to be brave, to stand up for people who need help, to make sure what happened to us doesn't happen to anyone else." That evening, Helena sat on her porch with a glass of wine, watching the sunset. Diane joined her silent for a while, just being present. "You did something remarkable," Diane finally said. "I survived." "You did more than survive. You fought back. You won. You changed things." "I had help, lots of it." "But you were the catalyst. If you'd accepted their apology, if you'd stayed quiet, none of this would have happened. Those families wouldn't have justice. Those policies wouldn't have changed. Burke would still be terrorizing people." Helena sipped her wine. "I keep thinking about the people who came before me, the ones who didn't have resources, who fought and lost, who tried to speak up and got crushed. I'm standing on their shoulders. And someone will stand on yours." Helena's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Chen. "My daughter just got into her first choice college. She wrote her essay about watching you fight for justice, about learning that standing up matters. Thank you for showing her how." Helena smiled. "Maybe it was worth it." Of course it was worth it. But late that night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Helena walked out to her car to grab something she'd left in the trunk. The street was dark. Quiet. Just like it had been the night someone planted the tracking device. She popped the trunk, reached for her gym bag, and saw it. A folded piece of paper. Tucked under her windshield wiper. White. Crisp. Deliberately placed. Helena's heart rate spiked. She looked around. Saw nothing. No movement. No cars. No shadows. She pulled out her phone, turned on the flashlight, and carefully removed the paper. Unfolded it. Typed text. Anonymous? Untraceable. "You won your case, but some stones are better left unturned. There are people you haven't found yet, conspiracies you haven't exposed, and we're watching, always watching. Enjoy your victory. It won't last." Helena stood under the streetlight reading the words 3 times. Her hands were steady, her breathing calm. 23 years of judicial composure holding her together even as fear tried to crack through. She pulled out her phone, took a photo of the note, front and back, photographed the exact position on her windshield, photographed her car's location, documented everything. Then she called Torres. "Helena, it's almost midnight. They left another note, under my windshield, threatening me, warning me there are more conspirators I haven't found." "Jesus, stay there. I'm sending agents." "I'm not staying. I'm going inside. I'm locking my doors. I'm adding this to the evidence file, and tomorrow I'm continuing my life exactly as I planned. Because whoever left this wants me scared, wants me looking over my shoulder, wants me to stop pushing for reform, and I won't give them that satisfaction. Helena, these people are dangerous. So am I. I'm a federal judge with a network of allies, access to every legal tool available, and the will to use all of it. They want to threaten me? Fine. Every threat they make is another crime, another piece of evidence, another nail in their eventual coffin. At least let us put surveillance on your house. Done. But discreetly, I won't change my life for them. Helena hung up, walked inside, and locked the door behind her. She placed the note in a plastic evidence bag, labeled it, dated it, added it to the growing file of threats and intimidation. Then she poured herself another glass of wine and sat in her living room thinking. They were still out there. Other conspirators, other corrupt officials who'd been part of the system Burke had built. People who were now terrified she'd find them next. Good. They should be terrified. Because Helena wasn't stopping. Not now, not ever. She'd won one battle, sent 3 men to prison, reformed 1 school district, changed policies across the state, but she knew there was more work to do, more corruption to expose, more victims to help, more justice to demand. The note said some stones were better left unturned. But Helena had spent 23 years as a judge learning that buried truths always eventually surface, that secrets always come to light, that justice, however delayed, eventually arrives. She walked to her home office and opened her laptop, started a new document, began outlining the next investigation, the next fight, the next battle in a war that wouldn't end until every corrupt system was dismantled and rebuilt on principles of actual justice. Someone knocked on her door. Helena checked her phone's security camera showed 2 FBI agents. Torres had sent them fast. She let them in, gave them the note, answered their questions, accepted their presence outside her house for the night, but she didn't feel safer because of them. She felt safer because she knew the truth. The people who'd sent that note were desperate, cornered, watching their empire crumble. And desperate people made mistakes. Eventually they'd slip up. Eventually she'd find them. And when she did, she'd do what she'd done to Burke and Whitmore and Hartley. She'd document everything, build an airtight case, pursue justice relentlessly, and win. Because that's what Judge Helena Briggs did. That's who she was. Not a victim, not someone who backed down, but a warrior for justice who would never, ever stop fighting. The note had ended with, "Enjoy your victory, it won't last." But Helena knew something they didn't. Her victory wasn't about the trial, or the convictions, or the settlement. Her victory was that she'd stood up when they tried to break her, that she'd fought back when they expected her to stay silent, that she'd used the system to hold the system accountable, and that victory was permanent, unshakable, documented, because the truth once spoken could never be silenced again. Helena closed her laptop, finished her wine, checked on Zoe one more time, still sleeping peacefully, finally free of nightmares. Tomorrow she'd go back to court, back to her bench, back to serving justice. And if whoever left that note wanted to come after her again, let them try. She'd beaten them once, she'd beat them again, as many times as it took, because she was Judge Helena Briggs, and she was just getting started.